Hey everybody, welcome to Zanzibar. I'm your bartender this evening. What are you having? Anything. Virtual drink for everybody. So, one thing that I've been kind of thinking as we're kind of getting, hopefully pushing this pandemic, the COVID stuff, into the rearview mirror and heading towards healthier, safer pastures. One thing that maybe a lot of people have taken for granted are the first responders through all of this. Their job has become more difficult. So many more precautions now with the COVID, and I'm sure those precautions are going to stay with them once this pandemic is over. Police officers, firefighters, EMS, hospital workers, everybody in the medical field through all this has just done a fantastic job. They can't take time off and work from home like so many others can and still do. I kind of wanted to spotlight a first responder. His name is Kyle Goodknight. He is a EMS up in Ohio. He happens to be cousin-in-law. It's a long story. I think we get into it in the episode. Cousin-in-law of mine, and great guy. Not only is he an EMS, he was a respiratory therapist. He was my go-to guy when my son was born. He's helped with my mom when she was sick and everything. Just a huge help to me. Great person to be related to, great person to talk to, and for medical advice with anything. So, he does so much more beyond EMS, and you'll hear that here in the interview. But I wanted to bring Kyle on and have a good talk, let you get to know Kyle and see what he's all about. All right, here it is. Enjoy. And we are talking with my brother from a different mother, Kyle Goodknight. How you doing, buddy?
How's it going, Paul? Good to see you.
How's it going up there in Columbus?
Just a little dreary these last couple of days, so.
Well, can't
complain.
You get the weather that we get like a day late, and it was crappy the last 3 days, and
so we'll get 3 more days of crappiness.
Yeah, and you have a nice, not really warm day today, but it's sunny out and everything, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. So a little bit of background on me and Kyle. We are related. We are cousins-in-law. Our wives are cousins. Kyle's up in Columbus, Ohio. I'm down here in the St. Louis. So Kyle, thanks for taking the time out. You're one busy dude. You're one busy dude.
Even the shoulder surgery didn't slow me down back then.
No kidding.
I think I was busier.
Yeah. Wow. I kind of wanted to talk, and what really interests me about you is your medical background.
Okay.
You're an EMT up there. How did you get into that? How did you want to get into that?
Okay, so medical background is a little bit larger of a story actually than just being an EMT. So I actually started off as a respiratory therapist.
Right.
So I started that back in, I believe I started in 97 as a respiratory therapist. And I, worked in hospitals, level 1 trauma centers, doing specific, if anybody doesn't know what a respiratory therapist is, if you've ever been given a breathing treatment in an ER or an ICU type of setting, or someone who deals with ventilators for breathing for people, the respiratory therapist runs that stuff. So we're kind of like a nurse for the lungs, if you will.
Okay.
So, our hyper focus is lungs and breathing and airway. So I was a respiratory therapist for years. I think ended up being like 12 years before I got a EMS bug, which I actually got early on in my respiratory career when I worked in Charlotte, North Carolina. They had 2 medical ambulances, helicopter ambulances on the roof of the hospital's level 1 trauma center, and they put a respiratory therapist and a nurse on every flight for med flight runs, or whatever you guys call them. What's your med flight there in St. Louis? Ours is called med flight here in Columbus.
I have no idea.
The other one's called med center air. Sometimes it's air evac, that kind of thing. So there's different names in different parts of the country, but it's the trauma air helicopter response team. So one of my preceptors at that hospital ended up getting on the flight team, I told him that was a goal of mine. Well, he's like, well, I got to go back. I've got to go to basic school because I have to be an EMT, even though I'm a respiratory therapist. Let's go to, well, you go to EMT school, then it's going to be out of the way for you. I'm like, sure, let's go to EMT school. So him and I went to EMT school for like 8 or 12 weeks at night. Breezed through it because it was a lot of the over coverage of what we already knew. And then my mom got sick, as you probably had heard in the past, and I had to come home back to Columbus. Well, in the Columbus area, they don't put respiratory therapists on their flight teams. So I had to be a paramedic. So the idea kind of fizzled out and never came up again. And then one day I'm working in the ER, and one of my awesome ER nurses comes up to me and said, "Hey, Kyle, there's a paramedic program." She had known, through working with her for several years, she had known that I wanted to be a paramedic and get into that field and break into, flight stuff. And she's like, there's a bridge program that will utilize your respiratory therapy degree. You go and you accomplish these certain things and you can sit for the paramedic test, essentially challenge it, So I followed all the paths that I needed to do. I had to have a couple of credentialing classes for like ABC courses, what they call them, like ACLS and ITLS, which is like a trauma specific class, and advanced cardiac life care, which is already something I already had under my belt. So went back to EMT school because I never actually graduated from EMT school in Charlotte because I had to come home too soon before it was over. So I went to nighttime EMT school here in the county I actually work in now at a career center. Actually, it's the same career center where Carter went for his schooling in school, my son, and my daughter's going to be going next year for pharmacy. So I took nighttime adult classes to become an EMT. 10 weeks of that, became an EMT. Went right into a bridge course in Springfield, which was about an hour and a half away from where I live. And we only met on Wednesdays. We had lecture in the morning and lab in the afternoon after lunch. And that was a 10-week program, and that prepared us to sit for the exam for being a paramedic. So that's what I did, and I became a paramedic. And then here I am working in the ER, and I'm a paramedic, but I'm also a respiratory therapist, and I'm working as a therapist in the ER, and I'm not doing anything EMT-wise. And one of my medic friends that knew that I just did that, an owner of a private ambulance came in with a patient, and he told that owner that I was also now a paramedic. And he's like, "Wait a second, you're a therapist and a paramedic?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What are you doing for lunch tomorrow?" And I'm like, "I don't know, nothing. I'm off." And he's like, "Well, I'm
going out with you."
Yeah. He's like, "I'm taking you out to lunch." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'm up for a free lunch." So I went out to lunch with him. He hired me essentially during that lunchtime. He hired me. I had to get some creativity happening because it was a 24-hour shift. The way that we work up here, and that private service did 12-hour shifts or 24 and 12-hour shifts. And I wanted to do the 24 to be prepared for this job. So I started working 24-hour shifts. I had to go to my boss at the hospital and ask her to move my schedule to 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. because they didn't in the mornings they didn't match up. I was getting off at 8 o'clock in the morning from the medic, but I had to be at the hospital by 7 a.m. So I'm like, there's an hour there. I'm going to be late. Actually, 2 hours. I'm going to be late. Yeah. So I actually, brought her information about our volume in the ER and the times that we got busy compared to when we didn't get busy, and then how the night shift guy got his butt kicked every time I would hand off, the ER to him at 7 p.m. We'd work 7 to 8 to 7 p for 12 hours. So I would leave at 7 and he would just have a shit show, happening to him. And I was like, if I come 11 to 11, 3 days a week, I can, I have the time to go work at the medic different, on every certain day, and then make my schedule around the medic. So I actually did for a little over a year, I did paramedic full time, 24 hours on, 48 hours off, 24 hours back on. And then I also worked full time in the ER, 12 hours at a shot from 11A to 11P. I had one true full day off, and that was when the kids were, that would have been 2004-ish, 2005-ish, like right around that time frame. Yeah. And Jennifer was at home with the kids, so she wasn't working, she was only contingent as a nurse.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's how I became a paramedic. And then a
Wow.
county that I live in and that I lived in at the time, Delaware County,
Hmm.
they have an EMS only system,
Hmm.
and where you don't have to be a firefighter. Where a lot of places around Columbus, you have to be a firefighter and a paramedic.
Oh,
So I'm not a firefighter. No way, no
right.
how. I was too old when I became a medic to be a firefighter, and
Uh-huh.
I'm way too old now to be a firefighter. And my shoulders just wouldn't be able to hold up to it.
Right.
but
Right.
but so I just waited my time. Applied, took the test. Ended up getting into the system here, and I've been a paramedic, full time paramedic. For Delaware County since 2006 or seven, right around there.
Hmm.
And then,
Now,
basically what that means is, I still have time because I work 24 on and 48 off.
mhm.
I actually went back to work as a respiratory therapist part-time for another trauma center, but that got to be, a big hassle.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a pretty strong medical background, and
Uh-huh.
I'm glad I have it. I'm glad I've got two different careers in the EMS
Yeah.
and respiratory therapy system, because I always feel like I'm needed somewhere.
Now, what was it about being, well, either one, respiratory therapist first, I guess. What was it that drew you to that career?
Okay, so what drew me into the medical field as a respiratory therapist is not as glamorous and cool as what drew me into being a paramedic.
Okay.
Helicopters on the ceiling, on the roof of our hospital. I
Yeah.
could jump out of and go get someone and bring them back. That's glory. That's like, yeah, hero
Yeah.
shit, right? So 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 I was going to Ohio State,
Uh-huh.
the Ohio State
The
University,
Ohio State.
and I was undecided. 3 years in, I had no clue what I wanted to do.
Really?
So my university college, which is what they called anybody that was undecided, called a university college.
Mhm.
He goes, go to the office and take an aptitude test. There's a test that kind of guides you to what you want to do, and it'll give you a list of stuff
Mhm.
that will tell you what you may want to do.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay. So one of these days after classes, I mosey on over to this building. I go in. I'm like, hey, I got to take the test. I go in and sit down at this computer, and I start answering just the random. I cannot even remember what the tests were like, but it was just like, I have no clue what the questions were. But
Mhm.
whatever that test did said, here's a list of things that you may do, that you may be interested in. And as I'm going down the line, there was a couple of medical things. There was other things. I have no idea really what the list was. It was way too long ago. And respiratory therapy was one of them on there. And I had no clue what respiratory was. I went ahead and applied for it. I was like, that kind of sounds cool, medical,
Yeah.
whatever, and so I had no burning desire to be anything like that in the beginning. It was an aptitude test that I took in a university college office, in my third year of being a student at Ohio State without a major. Went ahead and applied for Ohio State, didn't get in. They only offer like 15 people in their program at a time
Mhm.
every year, and of course, I didn't have the grades for that. Come on, I was an Ohio State, quintessential Ohio State student. I barely went. Oh, I did go to class. I did like going to class. I loved being I loved being an Ohio State student. I
Right.
loved being down on campus, but I commuted, so back down there every day. Love being on campus, love being in classes. I just didn't have the greatest grades. I'm
Same
not
here.
like, yeah, I need to, I have to study to get my A's, and I did get A's when I finally got into NBs, and when I got into my actual field of study. That's something that I was interested in. But I was that BC student, for the dumb classes,
Mhm.
and and the A student for the classes that I was interested in. You know what I mean? Because I paid attention, or I went ahead and
Exactly.
cracked that book. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So and when I got into respiratory school, let's back up for a second. So got denied at Ohio State.
Mhm.
There's another community college locally that had a respiratory therapy program, and they offered 32 people or so to be in their program. So I applied for that, got accepted into that, and then I took time off. I was working I was working part time at a printing company. I decided to go work full time for them. They offered me sales positions and to train me to sell printed material, which I'm so glad I didn't do now. Looking back, I mean, people still buy printed material, but with the internet and everything on our phones now, gosh, that would have been I'd probably been laid off years later, you know. But I remember being in the back in the factory, you know, chopping paper and packing boxes with printed material on it for all different companies around the world. And one of the guys was like, oh, I was going to school too, and I got hurt, and I went and worked full time, and you're a lifer like me, Kyle. I quit the next day.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I quit the very next day. I called up my buddy in Charlotte, Sean Rounds. I don't think did you ever meet Sean? Maybe you met him at the wedding. You probably met him at my wedding. He was a groom.
I wasn't at your wedding.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I got married before I met you. That's right.
Yeah.
So you've never met Sean, but Sean Rounds is if he's a good friend of mine, he's a good friend of yours. You could drive through Charlotte and be like, "Hey, didn't you say you had a buddy in Charlotte?" Yeah, his name's Sean. I need a place to stay. Okay, let me call Sean up. He'd be like, come on in. So he's just you know, a family guy, loves just loves having people over and my friends are his friends, essentially, and vice versa. So I called him up. He lives in Charlotte, working at a country club. I'm like, listen, dude, I just quit my job. You know, my girlfriend just dumped me for my best friend. I got to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
You know, and I used good language there. I said a couple other choice words. Hindsight being 2020, you know, super happy for them. Glad they're happy. But I was in a rough place, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, "Come on down here." I didn't say, "Hey, I want to come down to Charlotte." I called him for advice. He was my college friend. I met him in Swahili class at Ohio State. That's where I met him, and so we had been friends all the way through, you know, part of college, and he had already graduated and moved on and moved back down to Charlotte and started his career. And he's like, he goes, "Hey, listen, you know, I'm living with my mom and dad now, trying to establish some money to get a place to stay down here. Just come down and work with me at the country club." He's like, "I'm having a blast." And I'm like, okay. I'll quit my job. I'll come down to Charlotte. So I went that weekend. I went to a lake and had a blast with some friends on boats and whatnot. And then the very next Monday morning, I drove to Charlotte with my car packed full of stuff and ended up applying for a job at a TPS, or what is it? Tournament Players Course, TPC course in Charlotte. Yeah, Piper Glen. Got a job down there, worked all summer, had a freaking blast.
Nice.
Knowing that I was starting respiratory therapy in the fall.
Yeah.
Kind of
in
that
Charlotte.
last, hey. Yeah, no, I was starting respiratory therapy here in Columbus.
Okay. Right.
So I moved to Charlotte for the summer. And then so the Charlotte's a two-part. I talked about Charlotte earlier when I worked down there. So in a hospital. So after I graduated from respiratory therapy, I actually went back down to Charlotte for a job because I loved the area. I wanted to basically establish my life down there and work down there. So I went to Charlotte, fell in love with Charlotte. Feels like second home, like St. Louis does to me, and third home now. So it was one of those things where I ended up, coming back home, going to respiratory therapy, ended up meeting Jennifer. Her friend was walking. One of the girls in my class was walking with Jennifer in the hallways. And when the next day I went to class, I asked that girl, I said, "Hey, who's the girl you're walking with? She looks very familiar. I think she went to my high school." And she's like, "Yeah, Jennifer Maceline." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, so I ran home, looked up my yearbook. There it is. There she is. Okay, cool. All right. And then I'm like, "She date anybody?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." Well, as soon as she's not dating somebody, because I just got screwed over by my best friend with my girlfriend, which like I said, no harm, no foul.
Right.
Better. I'm
Over
way
with
better
now.
off. Over with, and I'm way better off. Yeah. So are they. So it's one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. So just tell me when they break up, and then I'm gonna ask her out. Now you can tell her that. I don't care, but I'm not. I don't want to be the reason why they break up.
Right.
Didn't know the guy from Adam. Now that I know the guy, I should have moved right in. But but
That's awesome.
nonetheless, that's how Jennifer and I met, and through respiratory therapy school and through all that stuff. But yeah, I didn't become a medic until after I was married. I didn't like I said, I was married for multiple years. I was a respiratory therapist for years as Jennifer and I were dating. So I'm drinking green with my green screen.
With the green
It looks like
screen.
I'm drinking nothing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, why is it
Drinking
keep on
air.
tipping a?
That
Yeah,
is
it's
weird.
like a green. It's like
It
a
does
green
look-
energy drink.
Yeah, nice. So okay, so the EMT,
Yep.
you don't get. Some calls, I guess, would be considered easy, where you're in a no danger situation. But talk about the danger ones. How do you get
Well,
in and out
anytime
of
you go
those?
lights and sirens, you get a danger. I mean, anytime you're out on the road, you get. I mean, we get. I'm not sure how often we're probably a little more plugged into accidents happening to ambulances around the country, but
Right.
people don't know how to move over. People don't hear the sirens. Cars hit ambulances, ambulances hit cars. So there's always that factor. Our heads are always on a swivel when we're going lights and sirens, and whether we're driving anyhow, we're just you've got this huge machine with all this expensive equipment on it, and three people when you're driving it, you've got yourself and two other people in the car with you,
Right.
or in the truck with you that you're responsible for, and when you're in charge and in the in charge seat, you're also responsible for the other people. So it's like an overlap of responsibility, the person driving and the person in charge, to be a second set of eyes. So, going lights and sirens to a scene, that's probably the most dangerous when it comes to driving, the truck to places. But once you get on scene, the first thing about EMS you learn is scene safe BSI. So what scene safe is, and I hold up my hands because they pound it into your head in school when you're testing, because they can't test you in like a house with a real patient. You know what I mean? They have to test you with scenarios. So you have to come in and you have to kind of like explain yourself. Scene safe, BSI. And when you say that, the instructor is going to be like, nope, scene's not safe. What do you want to do? Oh, the instructor said, okay, well, I want to wait for SO, which is, or the police, sheriff's office, SO. So if scene's safe, and BSI is body substance isolation. So your gloves, your glasses, now your masks. We have to have masks on when we go to all calls now, N95s. So, it's one of those things, scene safe BSI. So we don't typically go into a scene that we know is a hot zone, or is a dangerous area. Any suicide, no matter what, any overdose or suicide, the sheriff's office gets dispatched, and we don't go in until that's been cleared. They go in and check it out. When it comes to auto accidents on the freeway, that's an unsafe area. I was on the freeway one time and during a snowstorm, and we were after we cut the kid out of the car seat, he was fine. Driver was fine, but they were upside down and trapped a little bit, so we had to get them out. Everybody was, nobody was like severely injured, but we're on the freeway, upside down in a kind of a ditch, cutting this kid out, his seatbelts out so we could get him out of his car seat. So we cut the big seatbelts so the car seat came with him. We didn't cut his seatbelts. We cut the car's seatbelts to get him out. He pulled it out. My lieutenant handed me the kid in the car seat and said, get up to the truck and get him inside the truck. Okay. So I started going up to the truck, and here comes another car off into the freeway, off into the ditch. Didn't flip over or anything like that. And then here comes another car sliding because they're reacting. So all of a sudden, my lieutenant gets on the horn, on the radio, and was like, he told our dispatch center, shut this freeway down. But he was a little bit more choice words than that.
Right. I can imagine.
So they finally shut the freeway. So I got into the back of the truck, and before that actually happened, I got in the back of the truck. I put the kid in the car seat. I put the car seat in the seat. I belted him in back into our vehicle. I sat down in one of our seats and put my seatbelt on, and I'm sitting there like in my seat belted, looking out the back window, seeing cars spin around.
Oh my God.
So luckily the freeway did get shut down, and it was, everything was fine. And I don't even think we transported out of that. So it was one of those things where,
And people don't know how to drive in bad weather. I don't know about up there, but here they don't.
Right.
Let alone bad weather and an accident scene. You get the looky-loos. Oh.
Yep.
And just pay attention where you're going, people, and just keep everybody safe. That's crazy.
And then when it comes to the safety thing too, we were on a scene one time with police officers. And I can't go into detail because there's HIPAA. Of course, I'm not going to say any names or anything, but I can just generalize it. Police officers were already there. We came in to check them out. he was not really in the right state of mind. Thought that his whole house was tampered with in the water system. So next thing you know, we're wrestling this guy. He basically takes evasive action towards my lieutenant. And
Wow.
I mean, and I can't, like I said, I can't get into details, but there was 4 of us on him, 3 of us, and well, actually 5 and 2 cops. And finally the cop's like, taser, taser, taser. And we like, shoo, get out. We jump off this guy, but it was like, the police were there.
Yeah.
The scene was deemed to be safe. And it was, and we were talking to him, and it was just things, you got that feeling. And next thing you know, he made an advancement towards my lieutenant, and my lieutenant had to protect himself. Yeah. He didn't swing or hit the guy, but he definitely took action to protect himself. And then the cops jumped in, and we all jumped in to try to, I've dealt with unruly patients in the ER in my time too.
Yeah.
There was one time when I looked up at a doctor when I was a respiratory therapist. I looked up at a doctor, and I'm like, you need to knock this guy out. I'm like, he is kicking the crap out of 15 of us. Like he was strung out on drugs or something. I mean, he was throwing people off left and right. I mean, that's when they all called every male in the hospital, get down here. Like that's literally what they called.
What's the code at that hospital?
There's
calling Dr.
places.
Strong?
There's those. There's ours. I think one of the hospitals I worked at was not Dr. Orange, but Code Orange.
Code Orange.
There's different codes that we're a little bit now since 9/11. We have a generalized. We should, I know for like cardiac arrest and stuff, like code blue is what's been called over for a hospital, but like code Adam is someone trying to take a baby, and you're supposed to lock down every door, and employees are supposed to go man and woman every door, somebody at every exit of the hospital. Yeah. So when they call a code Adam, code Brown, that's not what you think. We know in the industry a code Brown, we know what that is, but a code Brown is actually something that is I can't remember. It's been so long since I've worked at the hospital, I don't remember all the stuff. And we always had a little cheat sheet on our ID badge, like, oh, what's that code? So
code Brown.
Yeah.
Nice.
So those kind of things happen, but for the most part, it's a safe, in my opinion. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people do this every day, and it's rare that you hear of major things happening, but they do.
Do you have any, and of course you're not going to get into specifics or anything, I don't want you to, any cases that, good or bad, that stick with you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where you have trouble sleeping. First of
all, this is PTSD is real. So anybody watching this who may be an EMT or in the healthcare field, don't be a tough guy and feel that you don't need to go get help if you're feeling weird things going on. So in this industry, the suicide rate for EMS is actually not very good. It's a bad situation, right? Because guys and gals don't know how to deal with the stress. They think they do, but they really don't. I've always been an open book. I've always been the kind of guy that said, hey, I need help. If I need help, and I have no qualms about going and talking to a counselor, a grief counselor, post debriefing session. So, one of the cases recently that really sent me down a dark hole at this job was a CO run that killed an entire family. Oh. So, and it hit close to home. My daughter went to school with the girl.
Oh man!
The son was my son's age. The man was a friend of one of my groomsmen in my wedding. Didn't know that they were friends. Wow. He was a handyman, do-it-yourselfer like me. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that later. Mm-hmm. Family with dogs, family man. Everybody loved him. Everybody liked the fam. And here we are. I walk up on the scene, and here's somebody I knew, and it ended up being his sister, and that whole family had passed away from carbon monoxide. So fast forward a few months later, of course we had a debriefing and we talked about that, and I got home and my daughter's crying and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, you were on that run," because she had heard about it through the grapevine with her student friends. that kind of stuff travels fast when it comes to people that neighbors and stuff like that talk and everything. So yeah, I was like, yeah, honey, I was, and she's crying. I'm comforting her. I'm just devastated that this even happened. But then we had a debriefing with that. It was that was one of the very first debriefings out of I think I was in EMS for easily 10 or 12 years by that time, maybe even a little bit longer. And that was the first time I'd ever have a debriefing. I never even had a debriefing when there was a drowning victim that was 2 years old that looked just like Carter, and I'm sitting there breathing for him in the ER. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That messed me up. That stuck with me. You know what I mean? But I never even had a debriefing from that. So this is one of my very first debriefings, and which is a good thing. Debriefings are definitely a must-have on those kind of situations, and everybody should do it if or call for one. If you feel like that this run's gonna mess me up.
Yeah.
So fast forward a few months later, we go out on a call here in the township I work in, carbon monoxide. It was after a storm. It was super, super calm. And we ended up having 6 or 7 carbon monoxide runs that night. And
Really?
one of them was a bunch of kids in a house that all their levels were super high, and one was unresponsive. So we took 4 kids to the hospital out of that run.
Wow.
And the concept is there was outside generators. You're running a generator because there's no electricity. Electric went out. The outside generators, they put off gas, right? They put off carbon monoxide. Well, it was so still, it gathered and didn't blow anywhere.
Oh.
Like it didn't go anywhere. So it got into the houses through the vent systems, through the easements, underneath the person's window that may be open because it's hot.
Yeah.
And there's no wind. And it was the weirdest thing. So this was only after the fact that we found out that there was all these runs were coming in. I mean, so we took 4 kids to the hospital. I took the first one, and then 2 or 3 other medics came in and took more kids to the hospital and got checked out, and all their levels were high. The one kid was unresponsive. He started coming around by the time we got to the hospital, which was great. So we didn't have any deaths out of it, but they didn't have CO detectors, which is a must in any home with any combustible gas.
Yeah.
But the one with the kids in it, the generator, the pull start generator, was sitting in a like a shed about 10 feet away from the house, but they had their windows on with fans in the windows, bringing in air.
Bringing it in. Yeah.
And the CO was, because CO is heavy, and as it builds, if there's no wind to blow it around and disperse it, it's just going to go. It's going to follow the path of whatever wind resistance or tunnel is happening. So there was like, so I get there, I start looking at stuff. We put the monitor on the kid, and numbers come back weird. And I look up at the owner. I'm like, "Are you guys running a generator?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Take me to it right now." So he took me outside into this generator, and I looked at the situation. I was like, I went right back in, and I screamed. I said, "Everybody out of the house now, everyone." Because that whole house was infected with CO. And we were there. The cops were there. The mom and dad were there. It was a sleepover.
Oh, man.
And so we, in the moment you deal with it, you do it, but it's all the after, it's, PTSD. It's
exactly.
after, post, it's like you deal with it in the moment, and then afterwards, if it affects you, you got to know the signs.
Right.
So I ended up getting, calling up my chief and saying, "Hey, yep, I'm worried." I got home the next morning and I started freaking out. Because that same night, we get a call somebody coming to the station, ringing the doorbell, 5:30 in the morning, or 5:15 in the morning. I get up, I go out. Dude's got a CO detector in a baggie. He's like, "This thing keeps on going off," and I'm like, "Come on in. Let's put you on a monitor." So I put him on a monitor. His levels are high, and I'm like, "Sir, is there anybody else that lives at your house with you?" "Yeah, my wife." I'm like, "Is she home?" Yeah. I just came up here because I didn't want to bug you guys. And I'm like, I got on the radio right away, and I'm like, I told my dispatch center, I'm like, give me a full assignment for CO at this address. And I told him the address.
Oh, man.
And he's like, I'm like, sir, this is going to be the first time and ever that I put a patient in the back of my truck and then ran hot to his house.
Wow.
He's like, is this all
guy's
necessary?
lucky.
And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that thing was screaming at you that you had large CO levels. Do you have a generator? He's like, yeah, it sits right outside my bedroom window. And it was just like, we had already
It's open.
had 3 or 4 of those that night.
And I remember after all this happened, you were calling us and to make sure that your CO detector has
So-
batteries and is working.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and
So I
and
went
it
out
is.
to the store and got a CO for every level of my home.
Yep.
You know, and in all those situations, you know, the guy and his wife was fine. Let's get that out. She was fine. We got there and she was, what's all the ruckus? You know, because we're running up to the door, like knocking on the door, and she's walking out. And then I'm on the way. I'm like, can you call her? And he's trying to call her, and she's not answering. And it's just like my thoughts were racing, you know, and so we ended up. So I got home that night. Or that morning, you know, because we work 24-hour shifts. We come in at 6 a.m. and we leave at 6 a.m. And, you know, I'm sitting on the back porch of my house and I started freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And I called my chief up and I'm like, oh my God, this, and this happened 4 or 5 times last night. What if we've got more people in the township that are asleep or dead? You know, because they didn't get an alarm that their CO went off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to go knock on doors. I'm like, I'm getting in my car right now and I'm going to go knock on doors. And she pulled me back. She's like, so what they ended up doing was they put out like they did a Facebook post and a Twitter feed. You know, they just said, hey, if you live in the Harlem Township area, you know, call your neighbors, check on people. You know, we've had multiple CO runs in the area for that night, you know, and check on, you know, if you know, just check on everybody. And that like calmed me down a little bit because like they were like, Kyle, you can't go knock on every door. I'm like, I'm going to try.
A lot.
You know? Yeah.
And had you not have called your who was it?
Right.
No.
Yeah, my chief.
If you know, sorry, if you would not have
No, that's
called
okay.
your chief, would they have done
No,
that?
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
so that one sticks with me. And then there's of course there's, you know, certain quirky runs where, you know, the one where the guy fought us, you know, that's that's an amazing story. The whole story is an amazing story. It'll blow you away, but I'm not divulged to be able to tell it. Maybe when I retire, but you know, it's you know, HIPAA's. I'm not saying anybody's name, so I'm still not going to go into it. But you know, that was an amazing story. I've got a lot of stories from the hospital too. I mean, I worked in a level 1 trauma center. You know, I had a kid come in one time who caught himself on fire because his girlfriend wanted to break up with him. He was burnt everywhere except for where his shoes were.
Wow.
And it was the most,
I'm
it
sure you
stank. I will never forget that smell. I will never get his screams because he came in conscious. And we had to like sedate him and put him under. We had to ship him off to a level 1 burn center. I mean, I don't know if the guy lived or not, but yeah, I mean, trust me, there's stuff that I, you know, and that's, you know, one of my lieutenants who was retired now. One of the things he said, and I'll never forget what he said, is like, you know, we do what we see and do what most people would never want to see and do, you know, and then we have to come back to the station and, you know, fix dinner, you know.
Well, you know how I am with that stuff, you know.
Oh yeah.
Drop of blood, I'm out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, they say, you know, people always want to have heroes in sport industry and all that stuff. Like, no, I mean, they're not the heroes.
Well, I don't, and that's so hard. I don't really, you know, you'll ask any of us in the industry, we do not think of ourselves as heroes, and people call us heroes, and you know, but it's, you know, I just do what I'm trained to do, you know.
I mean, yeah, it's a job. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, they're like, you know, like if they're doing, like if I've ever been anywhere and there's somewhat dangerous stuff happening, like, you know, somebody could get hurt, not die or anything like that, but a good thing Goodnight's here, the medic's here. And I'm like, oh, time out. I got none of my stuff. I got no monitor. I got no bandages. I don't have a truck to
Yeah.
get you anywhere fast. I'm like, I may have a better decision tree and a way to like deal with the situation, but
Right.
that's about it. So you just got my brain. That's all you got, which
Right.
isn't bad. I mean, if shit hits the fan, you got someone that can hopefully, like guide it the right way and calm people down and get things started properly and soon enough. But
Yeah.
no. Don't.
Now, you mentioned the kind of bad and ugly cases that you've had. Do you have any cases where people have contacted you after the fact? That,
Oh
you know,
yeah, well,
"Man,
actually,
thanks.
just
You
just
guys are
today
awesome."
we were talking about it. We were just talking about one of the ones that really sticks out in my head. We get a call, mutual aid, to a different department where mutual aid is we're here and they're here, and we're really close to the line, and their medics are busy, but their fire engine is on scene, and they call us to be the transport medic. So we go in, we assess this guy. Yep, he's having a heart attack. Talking to us, get him in the back of the truck. Coming up the back hill to the hospital, he goes out.
Yeah.
No pulse. So we start doing our stuff, and we get him into the hospital. He gets pulse back, and the doctor starts talking to him, and we shock him, do all that stuff to do that, what you do in a cardiac arrest, and they ended up taking him to the cath lab, finding a big big blockage, opening it up. He went home 3 days later. We ended up going back to his house, having cake and ice cream. He invited us all over, so you
Wow.
got, that happened. It was, and he was very thankful, and called us all up and got, the mutual aid department were with us or called us and said, hey, this guy contacted us. He wants to have everybody that was involved over and have cake and ice cream, to celebrate, what we did for
Awesome.
him. So,
Awesome.
so yeah, there's things like that. We get people that bring us stuff after runs sometimes, or, frequent flyers that are very thankful and grateful and, know us by first names because we've taken them in so many times, that kind of stuff. So, and I mean, and living in the same county as I work, that's, like I said, that big CO run with the family of four. I mean, it was a little close to home. Not everybody does that. Not everybody lives in the same county that they service. I do. I've been on scene with people I know. You know what I mean? So,
Do you find that harder?
It is.
Yeah.
Like, it is, but it's also comforting for them because they're like, oh, Kyle's here, or it helps the whole scene just because I can go over and talk to the mom because the kid's got croup, you know what I mean? And we're going to deal with them and take care of them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but.
So you do 24 hours on, 48 hours off.
Right.
What do you do on your 48 hours off?
Well, what don't
I know the answer to this one.
Well, I started a handyman. Before, like, I got into EMS and respiratory therapy medical sales for about 9 years. So that's what I did in my days off. Was I went around the lower half of Ohio, calling on hospitals and EMS systems, which was great. I loved doing that. I got to bring products to the market and to the community that actually did save lives. It was a drill that would go into your bone to give you IV and life-saving drugs if you can't get an IV. So I used to be the sole representative of that in the lower part of Ohio with my company. And I felt and I also sold like ventilators and stuff like that. So I did I did my full gamut. I was respiratory therapy medical sales and EMS medical sales. So I did that for 9 years. And then our company got some not sold, but a lot of the products got sold to other bigger companies. So we didn't have much product and there wasn't much to go and sell. So I eventually got out of that. And then I started a handyman business. So I started a handyman business I've been swinging a hammer since I was old enough to hold one with my dad, and helped put myself through college with handyman stuff and putting windows and doors in with my dad, and just knew enough how to do stuff for people. I put a Facebook post out one day in my neighborhood, hey, I'm a handyman. Anybody need anything done at the house, let me know. And I had like 9 people contact me that day and 7 jobs that I got within a week.
Wow.
And I was like, that was like really easy to go and make money. I'm good at it. I'm like, I'm not trying to.
You are good at it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you've seen some of the stuff I've built at my house.
Yeah.
And the 2 houses I built, and like the 1 house I built all by myself. I built with my, I made the plans. Somebody did the foundation, but I did all the finish work and all the siding and all the flooring and all the painting. So yeah, that I can do that stuff. But so yeah, do that, and then I don't know. I got a burr up my butt a few years ago, and because I have this amazing voice, I ended up becoming a voiceover artist. So now, along with doing handyman, I'll go home after I'm cleaned up doing handyman, and I'll go into the booth and get a nice mic like this and connect it to an interface, and I'll do training. I do commercials. I do whatever someone wants to pay me for. I'll talk into a microphone and say the words that they want me to say for the most part.
And you even built a booth.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, I didn't want to have to go out like a pre-built booth is like $10,000.
Right.
So a nice pre-built booth. It's called I think it's called a whisper box. I think, which you don't even have to whisper. You can scream at the top of your lungs and nobody hears you in that box. But
Right.
I was like, well, I can't afford $10,000. I want to build this. I know, I started researching it, so I built a booth in my garage and then took it apart, made it modular, and took it up to a spare bedroom. And my wife was about to shit. You're doing what to my spare bedroom? Where are people going to sleep? I'm like, I don't know. We got a basement. We got blow-up mattresses. That's where they're going to sleep. So now I have a full-blown, booth, and I have basically a booth with a bunch of I tell people all the time. I go into my padded room and I talk to myself.
Hey, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's
exactly.
That's true. That's true. And
Yeah.
even when you guys come down here to St. Louis, or I heard you go to Myrtle Beach or whatever on vacation.
Yep.
You have a portable booth that you take
well,
with
actually, in that basement you're standing in right now,
you.
in that back room where your
TV is
theater
the game
room is. I took our blow-up mattresses, opened up the closet, put blankets in the closet to dampen the sound, and then pulled blow-up mattresses behind me to close me off, and then talked into a microphone and made money when I was on vacation.
You're always working, dude.
I know. I don't know. Even when I had my shoulder surgery, it was just like I was stir crazy, just sitting around the house. I'm like, I got to go do something.
And you're kind of limited because that's workman's comp, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And thank God we have my system now has a really robust and good light duty program now. So I was able to go back and I'm part of the training group here at when I work at I say here because I live in the county I work in. So so I'm part of a 6-person training team, along with captains and medical directors and chiefs that oversee us, that we go out on a bi-monthly basis and we train our stations. And I have 5 stations, and the other trainer for my day has 5 stations, and we go out and get to see everybody and train them on whatever topic we were wanting to teach that month.
Sweet.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
but yeah, so
That's awesome.
that's, I have kind of a teacher's heart without, and in training, and even with restorative therapy, I was one of the preceptors for many, many years, teaching new therapists to come in or putting students with me. So I just have the personality, I guess, and the knowledge to be able to put it across. But so I'm always doing something.
You're not shy, dude. You talk to everybody.
What? No, I'm shy. I said, I've never met a brick wall I don't like.
I think I've asked you 2 questions, and this is going on. No,
maybe 4. Yeah, but yeah,
4. Okay.
yeah. No, I'm never short for words. We're probably getting ready to run out of 45-minute Zoom time, free Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I thought there was a timer. I forgot to start a timer, and
I don't think, honestly,
it's not telling you.
I think Zoom allows you to record as long as there's no more than a second person. If you put a third person in here,
That is right.
That's when it's 45.
Because you know what? When I was on a call earlier today with somebody and I wasn't recording it, and it popped up at 40 minutes that my time was bought up, and there was 2 people. That is correct.
Yeah, you and 2 others, so 3 total.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
3 total. Yeah,
3 total. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going then.
Yeah.
As long as you have the time.
Yeah.
You also do podcasting.
I do.
How did you get into that?
I got into that through the voiceover stuff. So I was contacted by the guy that runs our podcast now through a freelancing site. Him and I hit it off great. Ended up talking on the phone, which a lot of freelancing sites you just do emails back and forth. And for some reason, I felt, he was a lot of voiceover I do is not in the States. I don't know if people realize that, but a lot of stuff you see that's out there, like commercials. Like I was hired to do a commercial that was on Facebook one time. It was called The Drinky, and it was a dog and cat water dispenser called The Drinky. Introducing The Drinky. It was that's what they wanted. They wanted that over the top, like like over the top voice. And next thing you know, I'm flipping through Facebook, and here's the commercial, and here's my voice. I'm like, holy shit, like, that's me. So I did the commercial for The Drinky, but that came from Pakistan. The person who put the video together hired me from Pakistan.
Wow.
So I do all kinds of English speaking voiceovers for Indian and Pakistani and Nigeria. I've got on the freelance side I belong to. There's a world map, and it says world map domination, and it shows you the different countries you've been hired from.
Really?
I've been hired from Canada, from South America, from China, from Japan. I mean, I've been hired in a lot of different places. Russia. I just before all this crap happened. Yeah. So yeah, but I'm doing American speaking English. It's just somebody goes on and says, "Hey, I want to get a video made for a commercial for The Drinky," and I like this freelancer, and then that freelancer contacts me as a freelancer for voiceover because they do video, not voice, so they have to hire a voice. So I did it for them, and next thing you know, here I am promoting a Kickstarter called The Drinky, and my buddy ended up buying one. Teeter, one of my best high school or school age buddies, Matt Teeter. He was my best man at my wedding. He ended up buying one. He's like, "Damn it, Kyle!" He goes, "Your damn Facebook commercial. My wife saw that thing," and I'm like, "Oh, she's buying it because of the silky smooth voice." No,
right.
Actually, it was kind of an annoying voice. I didn't like the way they wanted me to do it. It was like, "Introducing The Drinky, where your cat and your dog," that's they wanted it up there and exciting,
Yeah.
Instead of in the middle to lower range. But then I was in a Yahoo commercial, my first big gig, 8 months after I started voiceover. I was in a Yahoo fantasy commercial, and you saw that. I mean,
it was on TV here.
Yeah, while I was watching preseason football, all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh my god, that's my commercial!" I jump up, I tell my lieutenant, I'm like, "That's my commercial." I'm like, "Wait," and we're watching the commercial because it's at the very end. My tagline is the very end. We're like, "Wait, everybody quiet." And then all of a sudden it was make better choices. Choose Yahoo Fantasy. Play for free, play for cash. I'm like, that's me.
I remember you told me about that.
Yeah.
And I was watching it, and it came on, and your voice, I'm like, I went and grabbed my wife. Tammy, you got to come here. So I rewound it. That's Kyle.
So that was I beat out 382 people. The person told me.
Wow.
Like actual people that. So what it was, it came in on another freelancing site that I belonged to at the time. It came in as an interview, as an audition, and the audition said, we're hiring for a big name fantasy sports team, and a fantasy sports app or whatever. And so what they wanted me to do, they said think of Chris Rock playing Little Penny Hardaway from the 80s or the 90s commercials. So I was like, okay, YouTube, Chris Rock, Little Penny Hardaway, pulled up the commercial, listened to it, and it was that pup. Do you remember that puppet in the 90s that was on the basketball court? He was on the sidelines of the basketball court. It was like Little Penny Hardaway, and it was real high pitched, and it was like, "Yo, everybody!" It was like that, So
yeah,
and they referenced that. I went and I listened to the commercial. I heard it in my ears, and I was like, okay. Turned off the commercial, pulled up my mic, and started my recording and mimicked that voice with their words. I got hired.
Oh, there you go.
And then
That's
when
what
I
they
went
wanted.
into the studio, to record it, they're like, "Hey, do you know how you did that audition?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Yeah, we don't want it that high. We want you to bring that down." She's like, "They're like, can you like give us some other ideas, like how to do this?" And I'm connected to L.A. through.
Yeah.
I'm at a big time studio here in Columbus that's got me connected, high speed internet to LA. They're in my ears, and I've got a producer here on my end that I had met only like a week or two before.
Yeah.
By asking questions and talking to everybody. I met this guy. I actually met this guy's boss at a beer tent on the 4th of July. He started a local brewery. When I found out who he was, I went up to him and said, "Hey, what are you doing about your internet commercials? Are you doing commercials?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm a voiceover artist. I'd love to, be. I like beer." And I'm like, "Can I be a spokesperson for your thing?" He's like, "You know what? I actually work at a place where we do video and audio and we do stuff all the time. We have voiceover. We need voiceovers all the time." He's like, "I don't really need a commercial right now," but he goes, "Here's the name of a guy. Call him up and go in and meet him, and we'll put you in the mix." And I'm like, "Okay." That
Sweet.
was a week before I got the job for
Wow.
the Yahoo. So things happen for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
The CO run, to me, maybe it happened. I mean, unfortunately, they happened because now I'm a spokesperson for carbon monoxide detectors. Everybody should go get one.
Exactly.
They're just the plug-in ones. They're $35.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they scream, get out of the house. Call the fire department.
Run your ass off.
Yeah, well, if you're still, yeah, but yeah. So I've done countless of e-learning. I'm actually the chosen voice for a company called O9 Solutions that are an India and Texas company. They have offices in Texas and offices in India, and I'm the American voice, and it's all about supply chain stuff. So my voice has been heard by Nike, Microsoft.
Damn.
Anybody that deals with supply chain management, and they hire O9 to give them training. I'm the one training them.
Wow.
My voice, their words, but my voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've finally gotten to the point where I understand their lingo because it's a whole nother ball game. Yeah.
So if you're ever sitting in a class learning something on a video, this is the guy's voice, and I'm pointing up because now you're on the video above me.
Oh yeah, wherever. Could
but
be
yeah,
over the side once you.
Yeah, once it's recording, you'll be over there.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's one of those things where my goal is to eventually. I really want to do medical narration. I really want to.
That'll be cool. That'll be cool. That'll be cool.
Like the voice of the American Heart Association. That's kind of like a goal.
That'll be awesome. Okay, podcast.
You
are involved.
so I got sorry.
Hey,
shiny bright things.
It's real.
So I got involved with the gentleman that runs the podcast, Ralph Valdez, out of Florida, through the freelancing site. I'm a creative, and he's a creative, and he's open-minded, and I mean, you've met him. He's just like he's very understanding and up to new ideas, and him and I started talking, and we just started throwing out ideas, and he's like, I love it, we got to work together. So we started a podcast. He started a podcast. I helped him get it launched, and I managed the podcast for him. Over the last 2 years, we've changed the name of we actually do like 2 podcasts now, 3 podcasts, and we changed the name, and we've come up with, so he's got a very political podcast that I don't want to be involved with, whether I'm left or right, doesn't matter. I don't want to be I'm involved with it, but I don't want to be on it as a face.
Right.
I just put it together for him and put it out. But then we came up with another one where he came to me, he's like, you know what, all this negativity with the politics, I want to do something fun. I want to do something that means something. I want to hear, everybody's got a story, Kyle. He goes, everybody's got a story. I meet people all the time, and he's just as outgoing as me. He's Cuban. He can talk me under the table, which is hard to do. So we started collaborating the last couple of months and coming up with a name, and we ended up coming up with a podcast called Life, Sports, Beer, and Music. You know what I mean? And And it has been so much fun. We actually had you on as a guest and told a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Let me see if I can do this. There,
There it is. There it is.
A little plug.
You can leave it up. Leave it on.
Leave it on. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
A little. Let me get myself like centered here. There we go.
Yeah.
So Life, Sports, Beer, and Music was born. We think we have a hell of a concept now. A lot of people. We've had only a few guests on at this time, but we've got people lined up that want to come on, that want to do it through Zoom or Boomcaster or whatever we do, or we have a lot of people that want to come into my studio and do it live. I've had one person who was a musician come in to actually help test my setup, and I'm like, hey, you've got a great story, dude. I mean, you're George Harrison in a Beatles tribute band. I'm like, can I just interview you real quick? And he's like, sure. And so he was playing guitar for my sound and stuff to get things tuned up for a different guest that I was going to have like the very next day, which ended up backing out for a few weeks. But
and the funny thing is, I was watching that episode and I thought you were in two different locations.
Nope.
And then all of a sudden I saw your arm go in his shot.
I'm like, fix the camera. The camera did one of these and the camera went, and he all of a sudden it was like looking at his knees and I was like, oh crap. So I'm like, and I mean, it was like, I was like, oh my gosh. And we covered a lot of that up with the transition, but
yeah, it was good.
And a different camera angle. I had a camera on him, I had a camera on me. I had my laptop in my booth filming him. And then I had my computer filming me. And then I had a third camera on a GoPro sitting on a tripod getting a side angle of him playing guitar. And I was just going to do over splicing and, just kind of bleed it in and ended up being great because when that camera thing messed up, I just switched to the other camera in post.
Yep. Yeah.
Amazing what you can do in post. So yeah, that's just me in a nutshell.
You in a nutshell.
Never a dull moment.
A nutcase in a nutshell.
And I've got two kids and, was heavily involved with their lives in high school and still am with and stuff. So my son was a hockey player and a marching band bass drummer, and I never missed a freaking game or anytime he was maybe one. I think I missed one or two band competitions. But I was a chaperone for the marching band, which they loved because they had a medical person on staff. And when we'd go out of town and do big trips, I helped, distribute meds for all the kids and stuff. You have 265 kids. Somebody's bound to be on a medication that has to be regulated and responsible for. So, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I miss it. I miss it. It's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. And like I said, I'm a paramedic, and being a marching band volunteer was more rewarding to me.
Wow.
Because I connected with the parents, I connected with the students. I had to actually use a lot of my EMS training during the time that I was a paramedic or that I was a chaperone. Not only, there 265 kids or plus, on a yearly basis. You have kids that need help, need guidance. I mean, I had several kids come up to me and say, Mr. Goodknight, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, sure, what's going on? And, we didn't go private. We just stepped aside, and some kids were like, listen, my dad's not anywhere around and I need some advice. I don't have a dad. And I really like, the way that I see you interact with Carter. I need some help. I don't know how to deal with this situation. And it was it wasn't anything about band. One girl was, her boyfriend was being an ass. And I'm like, I just gave her fatherly advice. I don't know if she followed it or not, but, and then there was times when I had to okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I need to actually bring in the director on this one. I can't and all the things any students that ever asked me for help, I'd always make sure I go back and make sure that all the right people knew about what was talked about. And I would tell the student I'd tell the student, listen, I've got to, I have to talk to more people than just me about this, because I'm not an employee of the school, I'm like, and I'd get them to understand that, and then go and get help for whoever. I mean, there's some crazy stories with marching band too. Man.
Yeah. And, in this day and age, you have to do that. Hang on, not there. You have to do that to, one, protect yourself.
Right.
And, you don't want to, and you're not going to share it with anybody. But
Right.
you just gotta
Yep.
help as many people as you can, and still be protected. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then my daughter's a cheerleader. My son also played hockey for many, many years, and we traveled with him. And he played 1 year of college club hockey, which was amazing. And then my daughter's a very accomplished cheerleader, almost professional, if you will. She didn't get paid for it. I pay plenty of money for that. That's where I'm. See, that's why I have to have so many jobs. I have to pay for cheerleading and hockey.
There you go.
As a goalie. And he still bought his own helmet and his own skates at $600 a pop. Damn. And I still had to work 3 jobs to pay for all that crap. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. We got so many memories.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so many
and
memories.
I'm upset that I've never seen him play hockey in person.
Yeah.
I never got to I never got to do that. And
you got to come to when we had a camp in St. Louis, and you came and saw him do drills, but that's not the same.
No, but I never got to see him in a real game, and I've never seen Cam. I've seen videos that you guys posted, but
well, we've never cheered in St. Louis, and you've never been here when we've cheered.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
So
you haven't been up there.
You can come down to Florida in April, and she's going to be cheering at the Wide World of Sports and Disney. You can come down. Yeah.
I wish I could. I wish I could. What?
No. You're a travel agent.
Mm-hmm.
Just make up a reason why you got to go to Florida for the week.
I'll work on that. I'm an independent contractor, so I'm my own boss.
Right.
So, well, I gotta explain it to my wife.
Well, yeah. Well, come on. We all know who the real boss of our lives are.
Exactly. Everybody.
I got my boss texting me right here. If I look away, I'm reading what she's texting.
She texted me earlier. Just basically said she's on her way home.
Who, Jen?
No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. She told me to quit bugging
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, buddy, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a blast.
It has been.
It's been a blast, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of your life, and I think the world of you guys. And if you guys watch Life Sports Music and Beer, I was a guest on there, like you said, and I talked about the time where you and your wife, when my son was born, you guys pretty much walked me through.
That was more the life discussion, but we touched on sports and a little bit about music because of your bar behind you, Zanzibar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We touched all the bases, and I think we were drinking.
You said beer,
or
the beer, and you were talking about I don't know, something about a beer. We mentioned beer already.
We did.
Here. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
my memory's bad.
It's all right. It's all right. But so welcome everybody to tune into Life Sports Music and Beer. You can go to our website, lsmab.com, or lifesportsmusicandbeer.com.
Easy for you to say.
Different names. I know. LSMAB, all the first letters.
And sometimes
.com. That's the easiest one. And then, or you can actually, if you really feel like typing, you can type in Life Sports Music and Beer.com.
Now that's really getting lazy, typing that all out.
Or just lsmab.com. But come there. We got a place where you can. Ralph does a nice little message, inviting you in to tell your story. If you've got a story we'd like to tell, whether it be sports, whether it be music, whether it be a beer story, it doesn't matter. We're going to have. I've got somebody lined up to be on the show that started their own brewery. Neighbor of mine, and he started right in the middle of COVID, and now he's a booming business. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So so he's going to be my. At this point, I think he's going to be my first brewer on the show.
Wow.
That's what I want him to be. I want him to be the first brewer. And
is he going to end up being the official beer of your show?
Yeah, for a while. Yeah, until another beer pays me more. No, I'm just kidding. Or gives me more, I should say. No.
Gives you free samples.
Yeah, I told him, I'm like, hey, when we have you on, you're going to have to bring your beer, and we're going to be drinking it while we're talking. He's like, absolutely.
Okay, invite me up for that. I'll be up and I'll help. I'll interview.
Yeah, what we'll need to do is, I want to plan it. I'd love to plan it because I'd love to get Ralph one when he's down in Florida. So I have to ship him some, or figure out a way to ship. I don't know if that's even legal to ship beer. I don't think so. So maybe we just talk about it here. But Rick, our other co-host for Life Sports Music Beer, he's local and lives here in town with me. And then if you up, maybe you come on up.
So that'll be almost unfair to Ralph. Hey, everybody,
That's
we're
okay.
enjoying this nice
That's
beer.
okay. He's lived. He don't care. He wants the best for all of us. He'll
He
tell you
doesn't
that
drink
right off the
anyway,
bat.
so yeah.
Yeah, very rarely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
all right, buddy. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy.
not a problem.
All right, bud.
It's all
Thanks a
right.
lot. It's Kyle Goodknight. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
And there you have it. Kyle Goodknight up in Ohio, EMS, great guy. Handyman, all around good dad. Just fun to talk to. Glad I'm related to him. Hey, so if you have anybody that might want to come on here, be fun to talk with, spotlight, just let me know. Drop a comment in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get and hit that bell so you get updates when notices. 3, 2, 1. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Kyle Goodknight up in Ohio, EMS up there. Great work. Thanks for everything that you do. For me personally and for everybody up in his community. Hey, so if you guys have anybody that you would like for me to talk to, just drop me a comment in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you get notices every time we have a new episode. Anyway, it's been great having you here. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.